Welcome back to the EFCA Network podcast, where we seek to spread encouragement among all EFCA leaders. And we're doing that in this podcast by sharing some of the best ideas and programs and resources from across the movement. So I'm excited to share with you today my new friend, Matthew Hickok, and we're going to talk about sabbaticals. What is a sabbatical? Why take a sabbatical? And how to do that. And Matt is a unique resource in the EFCA, offering to come and fill in for you if you're ready to take a sabbatical. So, Matt, go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself as we get started here.
All right, great. Thank you, first of all, for having me on. I really appreciate it. My name is Matt Hickok, and I'm the pastor of Community Evangelical Free Church in Niles, Michigan, in the Great Lakes District. I've been pastor, and my wife and I are going to be transitioning out of this role soon and into a missionary position that we get to share with you today. But my story is that I grew up in the Roman Catholic Church, and I got saved at 19. And a couple years later, I went to the Word of Life Bible Institute in New York, and then Philadelphia Biblical University. And then I got called to pastoring. And this is my second church. My first church I pastored for 3 years bivocationally. And I've been at this one for 9. My wife is an elementary school teacher, and I've got 2 teenagers. Well, actually, one's not even a teenager anymore. He just turned 20. And we're about to be young empty nesters, which opens up the opportunity for us to go and minister in an interesting and different way. So
awesome. Yeah, very exciting. So, yeah, what prompted the idea for you guys to go into this realm of serving pastors in time of sabbatical?
So in 2019, I approached my board about taking a sabbatical. I was pretty burned out, pretty tired. I had run pretty hard the first few years that I was here. That was my 4th year. 2019 was my 4th year. And they said, yeah, let's get this on the books and take one in 2020. Well, then we all know what happened in 2020 with COVID and all of that. And all of us had to learn a new way of doing ministry. And in the middle of this, I'm going, okay, they said I could go on sabbatical, but am I really going to be able to? So I approached the board again and said, guys, do you want me to go, or do you want me to wait? And we were fortunate that in our congregation, we had a recently retired EFCA pastor join the congregation. And so he was able to cover most of my sabbatical so I could get away. So we closed church for about 3 months, from March until the beginning of June. We opened back up in June, and I was there for just June. And then he took over for July and August of that year. And it was great because I couldn't do anything. So I got to actually rest. I had to force myself to actually rest. And I came back from my sabbatical feeling rested and refreshed. But most of all, I came back remembering the things that I had learned in the first 5 years of being at the church, but actually feeling like I had the energy to be able to do something about those things. Shortly after that, I looked around, and I'm part of a ministerial here in our town that it crosses over denominational lines. So I work with a lot of pastors from different denominations and things. And I looked at these guys and I went, man, a lot of these guys need a sabbatical way more than I needed one. And they just can't get one because either their church doesn't have the people to cover, or they don't have the financial resources to be able to do it, or whatever. And so these guys they can't get a sabbatical. And I said to my wife, we need to look around and see if anybody out there is giving pastors sabbaticals. And if not, maybe this is something that we need to do. And so after quite a while of researching and seeing if there was anybody that was doing it and coming to the conclusion that there's just not, we decided that maybe this was an opportunity for us to step into that role. So we will be serving with an agency called IMI SOS International. It's they're normally focused on providing interim pastors, but they see this as a need too, so they're willing to expand into the role of providing sabbaticals for pastors. So
Yeah, love that. Oh, that's great. How cool that you were able to get a sabbatical even during COVID. My wife
right.
and I, we still say today, when's our quarantine? We
Right.
we never got an official quarantine, so it was but yeah, that's great. I really appreciate that, man. That's the just a unique calling. And yeah, like you said, I've never heard of anyone offering, especially not free, to
Right.
come in and cover, but that is a major obstacle.
Right.
So I'll link in the blog post to several resources, but the one I found from Focus on the Family, very helpful overview. It's a 25-page document, actually, very helpful for just helping churches think through what is a sabbatical and why take one, why offer it for your pastor. But Matt, why don't you take us into some of your content and just share some of that basic information? What is a sabbatical? Why are they so needed? Kind of help pastors make a case for elder boards, help elders think through why would we do this for our pastor, and what's the biblical basis? Let's kind of jump into some of that.
Sure. So we defined a sabbatical as an extended paid period of time away from all professional ministry responsibilities in order to create margin in the life and family of a pastor, in order for them to be able to recharge, reconnect, refocus, and re-engage. And that's one of the really important parts of this whole thing, is that, a pastor can typically get some time off, whether or not that time off is paid or whether or not that time off is consistent. That's another story. But what we want to do is when we come into a church, we want to come in at no charge to the church, so that the church continues paying their pastor during this sabbatical time. So that's why we say it's an extended paid period of time away from all professional ministry responsibilities. And so we have a frequently asked questions page, because the same questions keep getting asked over and over. So like one of the questions that keeps getting asked is, would you ever interrupt a pastor's sabbatical in order to tell them something that's going on at the church? And basically what we think is probably the best practice is to designate somebody in the church that is willing to connect with the pastor's spouse to tell them what's going on in the church, and let them decide whether or not pastor needs to get dragged back into what's going on in ministry. So that's kind of the route that we're going with that. But the idea is we want them to be able to completely disconnect from everything that's going on in the church. Now, if you see them at the grocery store, yeah, say hi or whatever, but don't drag them back into, what's going on in ministry. So that's kind of the idea.
Yeah, and that's a great definition. That's I'll share my screen and just show the here's the document from Focus on the Family, but just looking at a basic definition of what is sabbatical, and just based on that, the old biblical idea of it, just Sabbath means stop, repose, cease, celebrate, leave, put down, put away. And just that real simple, like what is Sabbath? The basis for sabbatical is very simply the practice of Sabbath. And yeah, your definition is a good one, Matt. Just a leave, just to get away from the responsibilities of work, rest for body, mind, and soul, renewal, obviously reconnecting with God, with spouse, with family, with others. And I think that's the reality, is like pastors are uniquely under pressure, for the kind of stuff that we just have to deal with. And, Paul mentions that in Second Corinthians, after all of his list of beatings and shipwreck and all the crazy stuff Paul went through. He's like, and on top of that is the pressure I feel for all the churches. I think the average person who's not, in pastoral ministry just doesn't realize what that feels like.
Right.
I remember my executive pastor right out of seminary. He told me that coming in as a staff pastor, um, he's like, you don't know, Darren, you don't know what we shelter you from, So there's something about being that lead pastor that you are that umbrella and you take all the hits. And so there's just an exposure and a stress and a weight, that comes with that. And that's I
Right.
found this Barna research um that just shows, here's the numbers. People have probably heard this. I've heard it referenced as the Great Resignation following COVID, but right at that 42% of pastors have thought about considering quitting full-time ministry. And then Barna goes on to explain why. And like the main reason is the stress of the job. 56% say if they've thought about quitting, it's stressful. And then
Right.
number two, feeling lonely and isolated, just that need to rest and the need to reconnect. And so your story is a great illustration of that, just being able to come back with fresh energy. And, it's not that you didn't know what to do or how to lead forward, but now you got energy to do it. So yeah, take us into some of your content if you want to share your little brochure that you've
Yeah.
got.
Yeah. Well, the other thing is that we all know that when we interview with a church, it's almost like dating, and you want to put your best foot forward and they want to put their best foot forward. So not all the information that you need to have comes out during the interview process. And so you learn a lot about the real church that you just stepped into during those first few years. So
Yeah, you basically get 2 dates and a proposal. I mean, that's it. And then you're getting married. Yeah.
right, right. Yeah. So yeah, I'll throw up my PowerPoint up on the screen here and share a little bit with you. Mine agrees with what you just said a moment ago about let's see if I can get this up there. Okay. So here's our statistics that we share when we share this ministry. And like you just said, 42% of pastors are considering leaving ministry. But what maybe doesn't get shared a lot is that 46% of those are under 45 years old. So if you're looking for young pastor, young family with kids and things like that, half of those are, I mean, just about half of those are considering leaving the ministry. 1,500 pastors leave their church every month. And out of those, we estimate that about 250 of them leave ministry altogether. This one really hurts. 9 out of 10 pastors that are pastors right now will not end up retiring as a pastor. We just had our associate pastor retire about a year and a half ago after 40 years of youth ministry. 40 years of youth ministry. But when I came in, I knew that
That's
he was
unheard
only,
of to
I
get that
know,
much in youth ministry. That's amazing.
I know. And when I came in, I set that as one of my goals because so few pastors actually retire from ministry. And so, that was one of my goals coming in, was I wanted to see him make it, finish well. But 80% of pastors feel like ministry has negatively affected their families, and 50% of pastoral marriages end in divorce, which is just an absolutely terrible statistic. But here's kind of the idea of what we want to do. The average pastorate right now in the United States is about 4 years. Actually, they're saying it's about 3.6 years right now. But the most fruitful years of ministry are years 7 to 15. And so kind of what we're trying to do with Sabbatical Ministries is bridge that gap between years 4 and year 7. So basically, we'll come in and there's a pastor who's been in their church 4 years or 5 years or 6 years or, maybe even 20 years, and they just want to get to that next chapter or whatever. We'll come in and we'll say, hey, if you can make it to year 5, we'll give you a sabbatical. And with understanding that we want you to stay in your church after your sabbatical for another 2 years, because that gets them to that 7-year mark. So we're just trying to kind of bridge the gap from where the average is to where the most fruitful is. And I'm not really going to share much more of the PowerPoint. I could share it another time, but I'm going to drop that off at this point. those are really kind of the biggest things. So that's what we're trying to do. And my daughter graduates from high school at the end of May, and she's planning to attend the Word of Life Bible Institute down in Hudson, Florida. She wants to go down there for camp for the summer, which I don't know why she wants to go during the summer. I hear Florida's kind of hot during the summer.
It's a
I haven't
touch
spent much
warm.
time there.
Yes. Yes.
Is
But
it?
the Word of Life facility is
So
real
she's
nice.
gonna.
They got plenty of water there, so she'll be fine.
Okay. Sounds good. Sounds good. She's going to do camp ministry down there in the summer, and then she wants to attend during the fall, for that next year. And I'm still pastor here until the middle of August. And then we plan to kind of follow, and we're hoping to give a sabbatical in October and November of this fall, and then another one in January and February. Somewhere in Florida that would be kind of near where she's at, because this will be the first time for her to be away from home. So, if there's any pastors watching this that are in Florida and need a sabbatical towards the end of October or towards the end of 2024 or the beginning of 2025, we'd love to talk to you about whether or not we can come and provide that for you. But yeah.
Yeah, I've already sent your info to my the 5 guys that are right by me, and Hudson is right by me. So that's nice part of Florida to come to. So you'll be great from Michigan to come down and thaw out a little bit.
Yeah.
So that's good.
Yeah, and I've been talking to Glenn Schreiber about this, and I have a Zoom call with Mark Ramirez on Monday, and we are hoping, my wife and I are hoping to be at the Southeast District Conference at the end of October with a booth for sabbatical missionary missions. So
excellent.
Yeah. But like
Very
I
good.
said, it's a ministry of IMI-SOS International, and they mostly do interim pastorates and pulpit fill and things like that. But they see the need for sabbaticals, and so they brought us on. So
yeah, no, I love that. That's great. Well, let's shift from the conceptual to the practical. So we've established, a sabbatical is a time of rest and energizing and reinvigorating, reconnecting with God, and there's plenty of reason for it.
Right.
I hope we don't have to make that case. Like, anyone who's known pastors knows those statistics personally. I've had several close friends whose marriages have blown up, and whose wives have left and kids have rebelled. I mean, it's just, you don't have to look far to see the reason for giving pastors a sabbatical.
Right.
So let's talk a little bit about the how. I'll share one thing. I just found this on the Free Church. The Free Church has this policy, is very similar to what you had mentioned to me, of a pastor may receive 2 months of sabbatical every 5 years of service, and that's what my church embraced that basic practice. And like you said, the standard expectation is that it would be a paid 2 months, so that you get your salary, that doesn't get suspended, not a leave of absence, but a sabbatical, and doesn't necessarily come with any extra funding. Although the Lilly Endowment, I'll link to the clergy renewal grant with the Lilly Endowment. We applied for that last year and didn't get it. But my reason, I think my proposal was too ambitious. It was too much travel, too much writing, too much research, and they're looking for an extended time, like really more like 3, 4, 5, 6 months is what Lilly wants to fund, and really focused on rest and renewal as opposed to research and work productivity. Like they don't want to see much in the way of work, but that is one resource for funding. But yeah, so what would you share with pastors that are looking in terms of the how, other than connecting with you and saying, Matt, but you're one guy. There's 1,400 some free churches. So what's the how? I mean, you had a provision of a retired pastor coming in. That's what we're doing in Tampa. My father-in-law is one of the missionaries we support. He's a retired free church pastor as well, so he'll be covering July for me. So that's nice when you've got one of those. And I'll offer that too. within the EFCA network, that's the kind of thing we can help arrange. If somebody's in a place where they don't know someone, we know a lot of retired EFCA Pat. There's resources all over with those kind of guys. But yeah, what would you say to someone who's just trying to think through, how do I even go about starting this and trying to figure out a sabbatical?
Yeah, so that's one of the things. We don't quite have our website launched yet, but when we do launch it, we're gonna have steps to walk you through planning your sabbatical and all kinds of those things. And we're gonna have links to resources that you can use. But the Lilly Foundation that you mentioned is a huge one, because if you plan your sabbatical early enough, they can really provide some great financial help for you to be able to take that sabbatical. But like I
When
said,
early
you
enough
have
means a
to.
full year in advance. You have to
It
apply. I think
is
it's like by March 15th of the year before you're gonna go. So yeah, you gotta plan ahead.
right, exactly. But some of the other resources that we're going to be tying to are different places that provide pastoral retreats, or even there are some retreat centers that will allow you and your family to come and stay for free, and just have your own family type retreat. So we'll be linking all those things on our website. As far as the one of the difficult things though is that, especially I think in more blue collar churches where your elders and your deacons are hardworking guys that have to wrestle sometimes to even get a week or two of vacation, the concept behind sabbatical is really difficult for them to embrace sometimes. And what you have to really get them to recognize is, a lot of times with their jobs in particular, it's like a 9 to 5 job or something like that. But for the pastor, you're pretty much on the clock all the time, and you're at least on call if you're not in the office, almost all the time, especially solo guys, especially guys that don't have an associate that they can hand it off to. So just get them to think through just how much wear and tear that does on you as an individual, go like that. And I think most churches are really really love their pastors and really do want to keep their pastors there, and a lot of times don't even realize just how burned out a pastor's getting. And I think sometimes we do a good job of hiding that too, because we don't want to look weak or whatever. So we're not transparent with that to let our congregations know, or even our elders know, hey, we're tired, we're just exhausted. Another thing that I think is difficult for boards to wrap their heads around is, if I let my pastor go on a sabbatical, is he going to be looking for another job while he's gone? And that's where that 2-year provision comes in, because you go on that sabbatical and you come back and say, okay, I'm locked in for at least the next 2 years. Let's go, and your board knows that you're not out there looking for another job during that time. Or you may come back from your sabbatical and say, guys, I believe that 2 years from now, God is leading me in a different direction. Well, then that gives your church 2 years to plan for who your replacement is. So, I think there's really good opportunity for churches that are willing to trust. You know, our main scriptures when it comes to this whole idea is the elder is worthy of double honor. That's one. And then when Jesus said, come to me, all you who are weary, and find rest, and when we combine those two, Jesus didn't want us as pastors to be worn out, burned out, losing our families, our kids becoming ex-evangelicals, and our marriages ended up in divorce and things like that. He wanted us to have that abundant life. And for some of us, maybe we just need to take a step back and breathe and go, okay, I need to restructure how I do ministry so that when I come back from my sabbatical, I don't burn out again. So we're just providing that margin for them to be able to regroup and reconnect with their families, recharge, and then re-engage their church. So
Yeah, and that's one of our main things we encourage through the EFCA network is to stay connected in your region. Stay connected with your district. I mean, that's great if you've got a ministerial right in your town, with other pastors. I'm big into that, here in Tampa. But that principle of don't walk alone. I mean, that lonely pastors just get into trouble. Burnout in some is like the best case scenario from what we've seen. And so yeah, that's a great principle to learn that rhythms of rest. One of my friends in town here took a sabbatical 2 years ago, and that's what he came back. He said the unforced rhythms of grace, just having 2 months lets you just connect into those practices. Oh, and I'll link
right.
in the blog post as well to a podcast I just came across. John Mark Comer wrote the book The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry several years ago. And he and another guy did a podcast called Fight, Hustle, and Hurry. And it's a fantastic 10-episode podcast on classic disciplines and just slowing down, solitude, rest, Sabbath, like actual Sabbath, like not just take a day off, but actually protect a day, for worship and rest. And so all those things are, it's not just take a sabbatical once in a while, but actually establish healthy patterns of
Right.
rest and relationship. So yeah, very good, very good. Anything else as we wrap up that you want to
Well,
share with folks?
it's great if you take a sabbatical, but then if you don't put in those margins on the other side of your sabbatical, you're just going to burn out again. So you've
Right.
got to learn to be able to rest. But yeah,
Yeah, and protecting your family, your wife, your kids, all those things is just such a good, such a worthy investment. And so good. Well, thanks, Matt. Thanks for joining us here. And I'm sure you will have no lack of inquiries for people looking for your services. We'll help spread the word here in Florida, and we'll in the blog post share all the resources. And then let me know when your website's up and running, and we can link to that as well. So
okay,
thank you,
sounds
thank
great.
you so much for being with us. Why don't you close us in prayer and just pray for free church pastors and other pastors who need a sabbatical, and we'll end with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Father, thank you for this time. Thank you for Darren and his ministry. Thank you for the fact that his church is going to be giving him a sabbatical. And I pray that you would just use that to refresh and encourage him and his family, Lord. I thank you for the Free Church as a whole. I thank you for Kevin Compline and the work that he's done with the Free Church over the last couple of years. And as he transitions into his new role, I thank you for that. I thank you for Carlton Harris and the conversations that we've had regarding this ministry and the great ministry responsibility that you've placed on him, Lord. So I pray that you would strengthen him and encourage him. I thank you for Greg Strand and other leaders in the Free Church. I thank you for pastors in the Free Church. I thank you for their fortitude and their resilience. And I just pray for those guys that are feeling burned out. Lord, I pray that you would encourage them, strengthen them, help them to recognize that there is help out there. Their superintendents don't want them to burn out. Their colleagues don't want them to burn out. Their families don't want them to burn out. Their congregations don't want them to burn out. And you don't either, Lord. You've offered them abundant life. So I pray that they would embrace that abundant life that you have offered to them, Father. But most of all, we thank you for Jesus. We thank you for the fact that he was willing to die on the cross for our sins, and that you accepted that sacrifice and raised him from the dead. And that because we have placed our faith in him, Lord, we have that eternal life, and that we are brothers and sisters in your family, Lord. I pray that you would be glorified as we head into Easter in just a couple weeks, and as we continue to proclaim the gospel of Jesus Christ and see lives transformed in your name. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Matt.
Thank you.